Chapter 5. There was only about an hour or so of sun left, about 2 until total darkness, so after the long day on the trail, I would sleep better knowing we have looked in on the prison, as it may be the culprit, or at least have clues as to what is ailing my father. We crossed the yard, chickens scurrying around us, getting the last few grasshoppers buzzing around before they too bed down for the night. Arterous keys the lock, clacks it open, swings the gate, squealing on the hinges, spewing iron oxide dust in little clouds as it moves. The previous warden had always kept the gates well maintained and oiled, and they were silent when my family first got here. My father decided to care for the gates themselves, so they appeared well oiled. However, he intentionally did not oil or grease the hinges in any way, making it obvious to anyone in the vicinity when the main gate was even slightly moved. I shut it behind us, cradling the pitcher and bowl in one arm, the lock mechanism springing the latch shut again. As we approach the entrance alcove, the torch in a recess to our left ignites, illuminating the massive door and the copper horn on it. Inscribed by the fiery tip of a wand into the hard stone above it, Wormwell Wizard Prison, and below it, 1654. As he switches keys and begins to unlock the mechanism, I say, "This door was brought here from a prison in Ireland almost 200 years ago. Father said the magic on it is so old that no one really knows its age. But for securing spaces, a stronger door does not exist." He unlocked and pushed open the door, this one not creaking, but extremely heavy, no less than 10 inches of thick oak. Torches along the right side of the hallway light up, leading to the stairs going down and around the corner. I had seen the layout of the prison depicted in drawings before, but having lost my powers at such a young age, I had never been allowed in, not that I wanted to. It is shaped like a descending spiral, with torches positioned on the right, the new communication horns beside each, and the corkscrew and cells hewn magically from the solid rock, beginning 30 feet below on the left. It was only 30 feet below grade here to hard bedrock. Above it were smaller striations of various rocks, the iron ore locked in sandstone, some caliche, topped with soils made of stone ground from the movement of ice long ago. It was called Wormwell because the builders knew that over the period of its use, the only life that could enter would be tiny roots and worms. It was magically carved and thereby protected from any outside influences. The prisoners were doomed to exist only on the worms and moisture that ran down the walls. It was so terrible, I couldn't imagine what kind of evil is in a person that would drive them to commit crimes whose punishment could be so harsh. To never see the sun again, or the wind, or the seasons change. Terrible. I never wanted to go inside, nor meet anyone entombed there. The thought of their suffering and the evil that sent them to this place made me ill at the slightest fleeting thought of what was happening in the minds of the people, or the walls of Wormwell. My father corrected my assumption that evil is a purely innate quality that some people possess and cannot be corrected. He said he believed that all of us are a soul, a brilliant light, with all our thoughts, dreams, and connections to others, bound inside a kind of crystal shell. He felt it was like a golden light inside this shell that we wear here on Earth. Some begin early, while others are born into circumstances that immediately cover the transparent shell in thick, opaque grime, like tar, so all they can discern or sense is darkness. They have never seen their light, and if a glimmer manages to shine through, their circumstance instantly covers it in thicker layers. It becomes so dense, they cannot perceive the light of others. When they do, it is frightening, and they react only as they know, by damaging it or blocking it in others. It is possible for some to find redemption. There is one way, as my parents and I believe, to begin to let the behaviors and patterns of life that caused the sludge and decay subside, and not be afraid of one's own light or the light of others. That said, I still don't want to be here. Inside the door, to the right, was a larger part of the landing above the descending stairs. A large, fluffy mattress bag filled with water oak leaves, pine needles, and cedar boughs, by the aromas, with two large steel bowls against the wall near it. I poured the lemonade in one and set the rabbit in the other. Pretty cozy, honestly. I had slept in the granular clots of black prairie dirt of North Texas before, and the impossible sharp rocks which littered everything west of Fort Worth, not to mention the commingled goat's head stickers, blackberry thorns as tiny as hairs, and every other prickly denizen of the wild which find their way into your clothing and bedding. Those places were 1,000 times harder to sleep on than Bandos's arrangement here. We proceeded down the wide, smooth, shallow drop stone stairs, and after about 3 revolutions of the steps, we had come to the first cell on our left. The cage bars were also carved from the stone itself. An ash leaf shaped door made of brass, green around the edges, with no lockbox, only a tiny slot in its center. A large 1 is carved in the stone above the door. Here, in front of this empty cell by the light of the torch, I checked the paperwork. Of the 36 cells, the ones occupied are 4, 7, 8, 11, 14, 19, 20, and 21. Have you the monocle, Arterous? Can you detect anything yet? I asked. He reached into the pocket of his vest, under his leather shirt, retrieving it and stretching his eye up and down, letting it grasp the rim. Let me take a look. Yes, I can identify the carving and binding work spellcraft, a light grayish glow around the whole of the rock structure. The light of the door is a bit brighter, but there's nothing inside the cell, he said. Makes sense to me. Each warden must place their own secret magic on the doors, but the underground works are all original, I said. Keep it on, please. We should look for anything, even in these empty cells. The stairway, everywhere. My parents are skilled, and answers have never eluded them before, I said, peering into cell number 1. Perhaps any differences between the seepings in each cell may offer a pharmacological clue. This first cell was smoothly crafted, featuring a flat alcove on one side. I suppose it served as a bed. And in the back opposite corner, a clean, dry spot with a slight circular depression. Ew. I know what that is for. That's where they, go. Magic, it seems, cleans it up for them. Nasty. Within were also many thin, stringy roots with moisture clinging to them, hanging from the ceiling. More than a few worms had found their way in and had died all over the floor. Arterous peered in, casting a light spell to check more closely. No, I don't find any traces other than the original work, he said. All right, let's continue. Please, check the whole prison, if possible. Walls, floors, everything, I said quietly. Shall I cast silence, so we won't be shouted at by any of the prisoners? He asked earnestly. Probably a good idea. If we come across Bandos, we can ask him if any are worth talking to. He waved the wand in the appropriate X shape, and even the occasional drip sound disappeared. We continued. We inspected each cell and the pathway we were on, with no obvious discrepancies. We paused at cell number 11 for a moment to switch to a second page of the document. Jesus! Arterous shouted. It was Bandos. Not having been here when he cast silence, the wolf came right up to him while we were focused on the paper, and was completely, well, silent. A quick wave of his wand, and he knelt to speak with him. It was brief. Bandos said the only scent of magic that seemed out of place was on the afternoon of the first day that Dad's fingernail went black. He didn't feel it was related to any specific part of the prison, but perhaps to the air that day. I said I would go back up with Bandos to the top so he could have dinner and let Arterous and his monocle check the second half. I went back up with Bandos and sat on the top 2 steps of the stairs to wait for Arterous. After eating and drinking his lemonade, he lay in the bed my mother had made for him. It was only a few moments longer, and Arterous came back up. "Let's go back inside. I have but one thing which was uncommon." He undid his silence casting, and we went out. "Good night, Bandos," I said as we shut and locked the door. "He said thanks, you as well," Arterous translated. "I hope your father gets better soon." We went through and locked the outer gate. It was deep dusk now, barely any yellow light left. We walked into the house to speak with Mother. We sat at the table, he put his monocle away, and Mother brought some coffee to us. "Well, anything?" "Only one strange thing, but it does not seem important. A singular, long, tiny root extended from the roof of one cell, 21, all the way to the sleeping cove into a small pile. Through the monocle, it didn't look dark like a root. It looked deep and dark, as if it were revealing some ancient magic, but not like any colors I had ever heard described for the user of this device. I'm not sure what it means. May I speak to the professor's portrait?" Arterous asked Mother. "Yes, it's to the right of the hearth," she pointed. Mother, do you have the files of the prisoners on hand?" I asked. "Can we review the one for cell 21, please?" "Yes, give me a moment," she said, and went to Father's desk, where she began to shuffle through the papers. In a few minutes she came back. "Cell 21, here it is." She laid the book on the table and opened it, beginning to read. "He is Garavinis, yes, Finella. He was brought here 12 years ago, having attacked a nearby convent several times, casting boils and sores on the nuns who lived there over a couple of years. He was only 19, and he apparently was on probation, having graduated from the school in Yucatan after causing several serious problems during his last year. His family died in one of the revolutions in central Mexico during that year, and he behaved poorly after they died. The monastery nearby agreed to let him stay and help, but he turned on them for some reason. He hasn't spoken since he came here. He hasn't been any trouble for your father the whole time he's been here. He mumbles nonsense sometimes, but it is indiscernible, and according to your father, indiscriminate and harmless. His wand was broken upon his arrest, and the halves were cast into one into the Pacific and one into the Atlantic, by order of the jury who sent him here. That is unusual due to the magic used by the prisoner, spells no jury wants any other to discover in examination of the wand. Honestly, Mother, if he wouldn't speak to Father in all those years, we likely won't coax much out of him either," I said. "There's the Texan frog coming out a little," she smiled. "It is in here. It just takes a while to wriggle back to the top." I smiled back at her. "You said a priest had visited, did you not? Is there notation of who he visited, when, or anything?" She looked through a few pages. I glanced over at Arterous, and he was still talking to the professor through the portrait. He moved his hands around, I'm guessing by the motion, describing the roots he found with the monocle. "No, he made no note of who or when. It's possible he was asked to keep it private, and he would have. But the chances Finella would have spoken at all seems slight. Perhaps the priest spoke to him to no avail," she said. "His name is Father Callios. He has visited roughly once a week or so over the last few years. Your father never had any ill feelings regarding him, or he would have mentioned it. I can give you directions to the monastery. It's only an hour west of here. He was granted permission from the bishop to visit the prisoners. I believe those orders can only come from Rome, as the treaty permits only priests trained in magical counsel to do so. He was never without your father. Those were his rules." "All right, Mama. If Father's going to sleep through the night, I guess we will turn in soon so we can head out on the morning to the mission." Arterous came back to the table and sat down. He looked as tired as I felt, resting his forehead in his hands. Mother and I looked at him, waiting to receive any good news. Well, the professor does not have any information on hand that references a poisonous root like we discovered in the cell. But the depths it seemed to show through the monocle was interesting. He is going to look for references in his brace of magical medical texts. He is also going to ask a few others about it. He says the best book is vague on the subject, and even those references are extremely old. I think it's best we get some sleep. He sighed. The files on the prisoner didn't show anything of interest. The only other thing we thought of was the priest who would occasionally visit the prisoners. He came the day Father spotted the first sign of a problem. I said, "We can go in the morning. It's not far at all to the mission where he lives." I tried to hold in a yawn, which didn't work, and like its own virus, Mother and Arterous let one go as well. "I prepared 2 rooms upstairs for you boys. I will be staying on the bench in the room with John. If he wakes up enough, I will tell him you are here," Mother said. "All right, Mother. Thank you for everything. Tell Father I love him if he does wake up. We will turn in," I said, standing to hug her. She went off to the kitchen, took the tea kettle and her jar of honey with the long spoon, and went up to their room. We, too, went upstairs and into the guest rooms. One used to be mine, but after I started working abroad, they set it up for visiting judges, counsels, and transport guards. The house had 6 rooms upstairs, including my parents' large suite. We were as quiet as possible, waving good night to each other as we quietly shut the doors. Mom had already put our saddlebags and packs in the rooms, mine on a trunk on the right side of the bed, with the saddlebags hung on the end rail of the log frame bed. The window was open. She must have brought them in with levitation. Looking in the direction where I remember the wardrobe being, I noticed a new small closet structure. I went and looked, and oh my! Actual civilized indoor plumbing. I was gobsmacked. Some of the castles and country manors I visited barely have 2 and 50 rooms. A sink, 2 taps, and a porcelain throne. Even a small round copper tub. The same 2 taps extending from the wall piping over the tub. So nice. Turning around from the bathroom doorway was a wardrobe on the opposite side of the wall. I changed into my pajamas and lay on the bed, exhausted. I guess my mother heard me lie down because the 2 lamps flicked out, and it was not long before I was asleep. Little frog, wake up. Hey, it's Masa. Your father is awake, asking for you," Mama said. She was beside the bed, lamp in her hand. I woke up and looked around, startled. "Is he all right?" "Yes, he is. Please come. He is happy you are here." "Yes, okay." I flung the blanket off, climbed out of bed, and followed her out of the room. She was still wearing the same things she had on when we arrived. Again, I wish I could be of more help to her. It was still pitch black outside, so it was the middle of the night. The door to their room was open, with a lamp beside their bed, and my dad was propped up against the headboard, supported by some pillows. The room was the same as I recall from a few years ago. Dad smiled when he saw us come in and raised his right arm, beckoning me to him. I went right over and bent to hug him with both arms. He was so thin, frail. It was easy to observe in his face how gaunt and drawn his skin was across his skeleton earlier. But hugging him now, he was skin and bones. He couldn't weigh more than 120 pounds now. It reminded me of those who in the Amazon basin contract dysentery or malaria. I had been around them when traveling as a boy. For a man of 6 feet, a life of hard work and hearty meals, he had been reduced by 60 pounds in a month. I could feel every rib, the joints in his shoulders poking my arms, his skin loose across them. The private particulars associated with those illnesses would have been detectable by me and my nose from half a mile away, so Mother must have been caring for them in her magical, motherly way. So glad to be here with you, Dad. I love you. I sat on the bed next to my father, more afraid for him than I had been so far. He could see it in my face, which I tried to hide, but had no hope of doing. I love you too, son. We're lucky our friends could get things together so quickly to bring you here. He managed to force through labored, clinging breaths, clutching his chest, punctuated by coughing now and again. Definitely. 30 miles across the prairie without incident in the summer is a miracle in itself. I took him by the hand, examining the streaks and deep color marks. Has Professor Templeton shared the information we found yesterday evening with you, since you've been up? I glanced toward the end of the room at Mom. Some. I can tell you this. It is definitely some kind of magic. He paused and drew a few breaths deeply as he could before he continued. I have never read or heard of anything which behaves like this. It is slow, methodical, and it is killing the parts of me it moves through. I could feel the vibration of the obstructions in his airway as he struggled for breath. It hurt me to listen. It does not feel or behave as a curse, a spell, a potion, or even an ordinary human infection. It almost feels as if it is thinking, deciding where to move each moment. I cannot conceive of what it is. He was winded and descended into coughing as soon as he finished. My father has never had a cough. I fear it's moving to finish consuming his lungs. All right, Dad, all right. I'm here. And we are going to stay until we figure this out. I paused as he finished coughing again. Do you have any reason to think the Padre from the mission may have an idea what is going on? He shook his head no. No. Still holding his hand, more tightly now, I could feel his strong heart fighting to push blood through him. I spoke with your mother a bit before she went to wake you. I have written a letter for you to take to Father Callios. It will explain that he is authorized to discuss this illness with you. He will not discuss anything about his talks with prisoners, as those are protected confessions under the treaty. I don't know what help he can be, but we should ask. His coughing now was steady, and he waved off any talking for now. A tear squeezed out the corner of each eye, as if they were compressed shut while coughing. The veins in his neck bulged from the strain. Very good, Dad. I'm so happy to be here with you. I'm going to stay here and let Arterous go and speak with him. If nothing else, he would know what is happening. Perhaps some of his parishioners have shared something with him that might be helpful. Just rest. I'm not going anywhere, I assured him. He lay back, with grumbling sounds in his chest, behaving on their own, and Father wasn't even breathing this time when I heard them. I asked Mom if she had any coffee made, and she shook her head no. I said, All right, I will dress and go make some. Then I will stay up here with him so you can rest for a while. She had begun wiping her own tears as soon as we began speaking. I could see them, but Dad couldn't. It would hurt him more to see her in pain. I did just that, and checked the pocket watch. 4:41 a.m. It will be light in less than an hour. I made the coffee, put it in a kettle, and took 3 cups up to the bedroom. Dad was asleep again. I set the coffee and mugs down on the dresser and told Mom I was going to wake Arterous and be right back. I got him up and suggested he fly in the moonless dark to the mission with the letter and see what he can learn. I told him my dad is up, sort of, and I want to stay with him. It will be much faster than waiting for me and a trip on horseback as well. He agreed and began preparing to leave, so I went back with Dad. Mom went downstairs, not seeming to want any rest. About 10 minutes or so later, Arterous was ready to go. He stuck his head in to wave goodbye. I motioned to the table by the door, and he found the letter, picked it up, and nodded, then pulled the door shut. Mother was now cooking, and knew she wouldn't let Arterous leave hungry. I heard him say he should hurry, so as not to be seen by anyone, and he waved a couple of pieces of bacon in the air and was out the front door. I could smell it all the way up the stairs, and now I was hungry. I grabbed the pot and cup of coffee and went downstairs. She was scrambling eggs in the pan, the wooden spoon magically stirring them. The wood stove now hot enough. The aroma of biscuits baking in the oven was so good. Old buttermilk biscuits. She stacked another dozen pieces of bacon on a plate and took the coffee pot from me, tapping it and refilling it. The ability to stroke an appetite through real cooking, well, mostly real, is so fulfilling compared to the poof and it's done method. Mom, I am afraid that if we cannot figure this out, it may take Dad before long. I am not sure where to start. I hope the professor gets some answers soon. It's not what any of us want to hear, but it seems so bent on spreading in him. I put my head in my hands and leaned on the table. Elbows off the table, Raileanu. Manners, boy, Mom said, frustration being the trigger for it. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. I put my hands in my lap. Aren't you going to rest? Here, eat while it's hot. Shoveling the different homemade delicacies onto my pewter plate with her olive wood spoon. She sat down, brushing the flour off her apron as she took a seat. Whatever we find to do, you will need a full stomach. And no, my boy, I have rested enough. She was right. One's constitution will be tested one way or the other on hard days. All we can do is be as ready as we can be.